All right, so the next thing I want to work on is I'd kind of like to get a fresh layer of wood chips on the area beside the high tunnel where like the horseradish and rhubarb, asparagus, is there anything else over there? I don't know, that sort of stuff. I want to get some fresh wood chips on there, and I think what I want to try doing is transporting the chips on the hay wagon. The main pile of wood chips is up near the road, so it's a little bit of a run back and forth to get those transported down here. So what I'm hoping I can do is I can get maybe 6, 8, 10 skid steer bucketfuls on here and then transport all that down here. I'll have to shovel it off by hand, but regardless of what I use, I kind of have to do that anyways, unless I do it one bucket at a time with the skid steer, which would take a really, really long time. So what I want to do is just grab some boards and screw them to the sides and the front and the back here. It'll go into the 4x4s that the deck is hooked to, and just something that, you know, sticks up just a little bit, just enough to make sort of a lip going all the way around the edge, and hopefully that'll kind of help keep stuff from bouncing off the end of off the sides of the wagon as we're going down the driveway with a full load on here. I think that'll be good enough. It'll help a little bit in keeping stuff from being able to slide off the sides and the front. I'm not even going to put one on the back because when it's loaded, it's pretty much all the way going to be heading downhill. So if anything slides, it'll go forward, maybe to the sides. I'm not even going to mess this one back here. I think it'll be fine. Alright, well, we almost got this finished up. We were working on this the other day. Ran out of daylight and it was starting to rain. There was a storm coming in. So I'm gonna hopefully get this wrapped up this afternoon. Got another load of wood chips over there in the wagon. And basically all that's left to do is do a little bit more right up along the high tunnel. There's not that much left over there. Get some there, get a little bit more here right at the very end, and then I want to try straightening up this edge along through here because it kind of dips in a little bit halfway down through there. So try and get this straightened out a little bit more, and actually it's probably going to come out 2 or 3 feet all the way down at the far end as well. So it'll kind of line up with the power line going through here. It'll just look prettier that way. Everything will be nice and in line. So anyway, we're gonna start down at this end, start getting stuff scooped out, work our way down along the edge, and then we'll get that end done. I think we should have way more than what I'm gonna need to fill this in, so I may just kind of scoop the rest of it into a pile down there where that weedy stuff is, and hopefully bury that and kill that off. Well, that took a little bit more than I thought it was going to get all this finished off, but I think that's gonna do it. It looks pretty good for now until the weeds start coming back up. But I will say though that in the areas over here that I've had mulched for the longest amount of time and I've kind of kept up on it, they're really not too bad. It's the areas that were looking pretty grassy, pretty weedy, were the areas that I've only mulched I think once, and then I don't think I got anything on it last year, and then everything was just growing back up. So I hope if I keep up on this, maybe get some more on later this year, kind of get stuff covered back over again, that some of these areas will start to clean up a little bit better and will look a little bit nicer. All right, well, this morning I'm gonna see if we can get a little bit of tilling done here outside. Hopefully it's not gonna be too wet. It might be. It hasn't been that long since it's rained, but we'll give it a try. This is really sandy soil down here, so I'm hoping that it's kind of drained out enough that it's not just gonna kind of clog up the tiller and have a really clumpy till. Well, that actually tilled up pretty well. I could tell though that it was really borderline. It was close to being borderline on being too wet. I think if I tried doing this yesterday, it might have been too wet even then. but it looks pretty good. And actually what I'm planning on doing, I'm not gonna be putting anything in here quite yet, and this is my neighbor's tiller again this year. I should be able to hold on to this, I think, for another few weeks maybe before she wants me to go work on her garden. That's the arrangement, that I can borrow the tiller as long as I take care of getting her garden tilled each year. So I should have this for like another few weeks, and I'm gonna hold off a little bit before doing anything more with this. Hopefully get some of the weeds sprouting back, and then I can run over it again with the tiller, chop those up, and hopefully kind of knock back some of the weeds. Maybe might make it a little bit better, trying to keep up on that later if I can get at least that first round of seeds that are going to be sprouting back up, get those chopped up and gone. Not too bad of a crop of rocks this year. This is all that popped up for this time. And of course, a little public service announcement here to, make sure that you always pick up the tabs from your soda cans, because those will sprout into a full-size can over the winter. So always make sure you pick those up so you don't have to deal with this in the spring. So we're going to move on to working on this area, getting this tilled up as well. This is where I had potatoes last year. And this needs a little bit of prep work before we can start tilling. As you can see, there's some pretty decent sized rocks in here that surfaced last year. I'm not entirely sure how I managed to get this tilled with having some of these, but there are a lot of good sized rocks that are up here on the surface on top. I need to get those cleaned out. And then that's some stuff that was over where we were doing the wood chips earlier, so I got to get that moved out of here. Got a trailer over here, got that, so I got to move a whole bunch of stuff here before we can even start tilling. So I don't really have any plans for using these panels for growing anything on them this year, but I also don't want to move them really far away from the garden area either. It's kind of nice having them right here and handy. So I think this will work, just to lean them up against here. That way they aren't taking up much area to store them. It'll be nice and handy if I want to use them. So I've got a feeling that I'm going to be picking a whole lot of rock up out of this area. So instead of using the wheelbarrow like I was for the other area, I'm just going to load all the rock up into the bucket of the Massey, and then I can use that to take it around over to the rock pile and dump over there. Well, I managed to get it jammed up. I got a rock that's, about yay thick or so, and it was just thick enough to get it pulled up in between the kind of the housing, the shielding of the tiller and the tiller tines. So let's see if I can get this pried out. There we go. Alright, so I'm re-recording this little bit because as I was editing I found that I did a kind of a poor job of explaining what was going on here. So the last year or two, this part of the garden was a triangular shape. It went from that corner kind of down to this corner, or maybe over towards that corner of the high tunnel. And that was okay-ish for planting like one thing in here. However, this year I'm going to be doing more of a market garden, doing stuff for sale. And for that, it's going to be a lot easier to have the rectangular shape that I've got here now. That way all my rows are evenly spaced. I know that each row is like 75 feet long. And then that makes it a little bit easier to keep track of what I've done, how much of each thing I've done, and then using it for future reference of saying, okay, that was too much or that was too little, and having a better idea for years to come. Now, I would have liked to have gone over this a little bit more. It's pretty well tilled in that new area, but it wouldn't hurt to do a couple more passes on it. I am getting some sort of a leakage on the Massey. And I'm not quite sure where or what that is, but I'm just going to let it set here for a little bit, check a few things, make sure it doesn't look like anything's about ready to blow up on it. It is, how old is it? 1964. It's 60 years old this year, so, you know, it's getting up there. It's allowed to have a few little issues from time to time. As long as they're little issues, nothing big. Alright, so I think it looks like we may be leaking a little bit of coolant around a gasket that leads to a hose that goes to the radiator on the Massey. I think that's what our leakage is. I'm gonna go ahead and just keep on working on doing some stuff here. Of course, we still need to get the high tunnel tilled, so we'll keep going, kind of keep an eye on it, make sure it doesn't look like anything's about ready to blow up, and I'll see if maybe I can find a gasket for that, or maybe I just need to use some, you know, squeeze on gasket to try and replace something with that. Not quite sure what needs to be done, but I think that's what it is, and I think we're okay to keep going. So as you can see, I got the sprinkler going back here. I'm trying to get a little bit more of the high tunnel kind of at least wetted down a little bit so it's not quite so dusty when we're in here tilling. I've still got a few last little odds and ends of stuff that needs to be picked up in here to get this area cleaned out so that we can till, and then we'll turn the sprinkler off, bring the tractor in here, and see if we can create a dust storm. Those are starting to, oh man, those are starting to grow into the ground underneath. I think this is going to be another little video getting some elderberries planted. They've been in these pots for probably a little over a year at this point, and they really need to find a home. Now, I know some of you really would have liked to have seen when I dumped the entire barrel of maple sap earlier this year, and unfortunately I didn't catch that on video. So this is going to have to suffice as the closest thing you're going to get to seeing that, hopefully ever. Alright, I think this is the last little bit of stuff that needs to get moved. This was just some stuff that got sorted out when we were moving the big pile of scrap metal from the end here. This here is copper wire that got sorted out separate, and then this stuff here is aluminum. I don't really know that we're going to have enough, even going through the rest of the scrap piles of stuff like this, to really make it worth pulling it out, but pulled it out anyways. That looks like high tinsel. Alright, well hopefully that's anything that would poke holes in a tire, I hope. Alrighty folks, well that is going to do it for today. Like I mentioned, I'm going to come back in another maybe week or two after we've gotten some rain on it and some warm weather. Undoubtedly there's just going to be a whole mess of weeds coming back up in the areas that we've tilled, so I'll go back through, till it under again, and hopefully that'll take care of at least some of the weeds, or at least some of the weed seed, and we won't have to deal with that later on as far as actually having to weed those out and pull those. So that is going to be it for today's video. As always, I appreciate you guys watching, and I will see you next time.